What if the secrets to unlocking the mysteries of the universe were hidden from humanity not by time, but by design? What if ancient knowledge, the kind that shaped civilizations, altered destinies, and guided prophets, was buried to keep us from understanding our true power? In the heart of this buried wisdom lies the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, a figure so enigmatic, his influence stretched across millennia. His words were whispered in the shadows, worshipped in the silence, and yet silenced in the grand scheme of history. Alchemists, mystics, and sages have claimed to have found the truth in his teachings, but who, or what, sought to erase his legacy? And more intriguingly, why? Tonight, we embark on a journey into a world where knowledge is not just a tool, it is a weapon, where understanding the divine could be the key to unlocking immortality, power, and the ultimate understanding of the cosmos. But, as with all profound truths, there are those who wish to prevent it from reaching the masses. In this video, we will explore the silencing of Hermes Trismegistus, the one known as thrice great, the master of alchemy, philosophy, and magic. His words shaped not only mystical traditions but also sparked revolutions of thought. Yet his voice was muffled, obscured, and at times erased by forces that feared the consequences of such knowledge being freely shared. Who were these forces? What made them so afraid? And what secrets do the Hermetic teachings still hold for us today? Join us as we uncover the veils of history, exposing the reasons why the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus were silenced, and what they can still teach us about our forgotten potential. To understand why the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus were silenced, we must first journey into the depths of time far beyond the borders of recorded history. Hermes Trismegistus, often depicted as a fusion of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, stands as a figure of both myth and reality. His teachings spanned the ancient world, influencing philosophers, mystics, and scholars from the Egyptian and Greek worlds, all the way to the Islamic Golden Age and Renaissance Europe. His writings collected in what are known as the Hermetic texts covered vast ground, from alchemy and astrology to theology and metaphysics. But these weren't just teachings for intellectual elites, they were profound spiritual revelations that sought to reconnect humanity with divine wisdom. To the ancient world, Hermes was not merely a sage, he was a messenger of the gods, the keeper of sacred knowledge that could, if properly understood, lead humanity to enlightenment and even immortality. Yet, as powerful as these teachings were, they also held the potential for great disruption. Hermes' philosophy was deeply intertwined with the idea that humanity could transcend the limitations of the material world, an idea that threatened the established powers of the time. The early Christian Church, in particular, saw the Hermetic tradition as a rival, one that proposed a path to divine wisdom outside of the orthodox framework of religious authority. During the rise of Christianity, especially in the 4th and 5th centuries, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, which had once been revered and widely spread, began to be overshadowed and even suppressed. It is believed that many of the Hermetic texts were deliberately hidden or lost. Early Christian theologians such as St. Augustine and others who rose to power in the Roman Empire deemed Hermeticism as pagan and in direct conflict with Christian doctrine. The very idea that there were other pathways to salvation, outside the strict narrative of Christian orthodoxy, was anathema to the new rulers of the spiritual world. In addition, the emergence of political and religious institutions seeking to control knowledge created an environment where anything that could challenge their authority had to be repressed. Just as the burning of books in the Middle Ages sought to eradicate heretical ideas, the works of Hermes were deemed too dangerous to be widely disseminated. And so, over time, many of the Hermetic teachings faded into obscurity. But was it truly a conscious effort to suppress them? Or did the mystical nature of Hermes's wisdom, his cryptic, allegorical style, allow these teachings to become fragmented and lost, deliberately or otherwise? Was the suppression of his writings simply an attempt to consolidate power, or did it represent something deeper, a fear of humanity's potential to unlock knowledge that could break the chains of earthly control? As we explore further, we'll see how the ancient Hermetic wisdom not only survived in fragments but found its way into the hands of alchemists, magicians, and philosophers, who hid it within their own practices, ensuring that the knowledge of Hermes Trismegistus would never truly disappear. The teachings of Hermes Trismegistus are not simply ancient wisdom, they are the cornerstone of a philosophy that blends the mystical, the scientific, and the divine. To truly understand why these teachings were silenced, we must first unpack their core principles, which were radical for their time and continue to resonate today. At the heart of Hermeticism lies the belief in the interconnectedness of all things, the fundamental idea that everything in the universe is a reflection of the divine, and that there is no separation between the material and spiritual worlds. The famous Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without, encapsulates this philosophy. It suggests that the microcosm of the human being is a reflection of the macrocosm of the universe. To understand oneself is to understand the cosmos, and to understand the cosmos is to understand the divine. This idea alone was enough to spark controversy. For centuries, Western thought had been dominated by the idea that the material world was separate from the divine. The idea that humans could directly influence the spiritual realm or that the material realm could be understood through spiritual insight was considered heretical by many of the early Christian authorities. The notion that humans were not just passive recipients of divine will but active participants in the cosmic order threatened the hierarchical control of religious institutions. Another core teaching of Hermes Trismegistus is the concept of the One. The One is an all-encompassing, ineffable source from which everything emanates. It is the absolute unity behind the appearance of duality in the world. This philosophical concept was not just abstract theory, it offered a framework for understanding the nature of God, the universe, and the self. The One was seen as the source of all life, and the journey of spiritual enlightenment was seen as a return to this singular, divine source. In many ways, this teaching echoes the mystical traditions of other ancient civilizations, Brahman in Hinduism, the Tao in Taoism, and the concept of the monad in ancient Greek philosophy. But in the context of early Christianity, the idea of a non-personified, all-encompassing divinity was seen as a direct challenge to the personal, anthropomorphic God of the Bible. The very idea that God could be understood as an abstract principle rather than a separate being was, for many, a step too far. But beyond these philosophical concepts, Hermes Trismegistus also imparted practical wisdom. His teachings on alchemy, astrology, and magic were not simply concerned with the manipulation of the physical world, but with the transformation of the self. Alchemy, in the Hermetic tradition, was as much about inner transformation as it was about turning base metals into gold. The Philosopher's Stone, the legendary substance believed to grant immortality, was seen as a metaphor for achieving spiritual perfection. To a society deeply rooted in religious orthodoxy, the idea that humans could achieve divinity through personal transformation was revolutionary. It challenged not only religious dogma but also the social order itself. If anyone could, through knowledge and discipline, become like the gods, then the power of kings, priests, and rulers would be diminished. No wonder these teachings were feared. Hermeticism, in its fullest form, proposed that individuals could attain gnosis direct, experiential knowledge of the divine through disciplined study, meditation, and spiritual practice. This gnosis was not just intellectual knowledge, but a deep, transformative wisdom that changed the very fabric of one's being. The silent silencing of these teachings was, therefore, not just an attack on philosophy, it was an attack on the very notion of personal empowerment and enlightenment. Hermetic ideas would later find refuge in secret societies, such as the Rosicrucians and Freemasons, where their mystical teachings would continue to influence Western thought in secret. But in the public sphere, where they might have liberated humanity from the shackles of ignorance and fear, they were buried. And yet, despite the efforts to suppress them, these teachings never fully disappeared. They found their way into the works of Renaissance thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, who, despite the Catholic Church's strong grip on Europe, championed the Hermetic writings as a source of divine wisdom. They knew the danger of this knowledge, but they also recognized its transformative power, something that was too potent to keep hidden forever. As we delve deeper into the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, we uncover layers of meaning that transcend mere philosophy or mystical practice. His writings are filled with paradoxes, hidden symbols, and allegorical reference elements that not only challenged conventional thinking but also created a labyrinth of understanding that only the initiated could truly navigate. These elements of mystery were not just stylistic choices, they were deliberate methods to preserve knowledge for those who sought the truth, while keeping it concealed from those who would seek to control it. One of the most compelling aspects of the Hermetic tradition is its emphasis on the paradoxical nature of reality. Hermes Trismegistus taught that the universe is both infinite and finite, both material and immaterial, both in a constant state of flux and yet eternally unchanging. This concept is encapsulated in the idea of polarity, the notion that opposites are not separate but two sides of the same coin. Life and death, light and darkness, good and evil, they are all interconnected and part of a greater, harmonious unity. In the context of early Christianity, this concept was deeply problematic. The Church, which had consolidated its power through the duality of a personal, judgmental God and the binary moral structure of good versus evil, found the Hermetic view of reality deeply unsettling. If the universe was a unity where opposites coexisted, then the rigid moral divisions between light and dark, salvation and damnation, would no longer hold the same weight. In essence, the Hermetic view of reality undermined the dichotomy upon which so much of Christian theology was built. Yet, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus offered more than just an alternative philosophical perspective. They provided a roadmap for transcending duality. In his writings, we find the call to reconcile these opposites within oneself. The Hermetic concept of inner alchemy suggested that by mastering the tensions between the inner contradictions within the human soul, one could achieve balance, and ultimately, divine wisdom. This, again, was not just a spiritual goal, it was a transformative tool that had the potential to unlock the full power of human consciousness. Another element of Hermeticism that was seen as dangerous was its teachings on magic and astrology. To the initiated, these subjects were not superstitions, but sophisticated systems of knowledge that governed the laws of the universe. Astrology, for example, was not merely about predicting the future but about understanding the movements of the stars as symbolic representations of the divine order. It was a way of understanding the patterns of the universe and how human beings could align themselves with those patterns to create harmony in their lives. Magic, in the Hermetic sense, was also deeply philosophical. It was not about casting spells or manipulating the physical world for selfish gain. It was about understanding the forces of nature and using that understanding to achieve spiritual transformation. The Hermetic magus was not a conjurer of tricks, but a seeker of truth, who could tap into the divine energies that permeate the cosmos. However, the Church and the religious authorities of the time did not see it this way. To them, magic was dangerous because it was a form of knowledge that could bypass the institutionalized structures of control. Magic was too powerful, too direct a link to the divine, too liberating. For a single individual to claim access to divine power outside the mediation of the Church was an act of defiance against the very foundation of religious and political authority. In this context, we begin to see the full scope of the fear that surrounded the Hermetic teachings. The mystical, transformative power embedded in these teachings was not something that could be easily suppressed by a simple decree or by the burning of books. The knowledge was encoded in ways that allowed it to survive through the ages, sometimes in hidden, coded forms, sometimes in plain sight, disguised within the works of poets, alchemists, and philosophers. We also begin to understand why certain Hermetic ideas were seen as dangerous. They were ideas that placed the power of the divine directly into the hands of individuals. By empowering people to understand the workings of the cosmos, to tap into hidden knowledge, and to transform themselves on a spiritual level, these teachings undermined the hierarchical structures of power that depended on the masses being kept in ignorance. The suppression of Hermeticism, then, becomes not just an attack on a particular set of ideas but on a potential revolution of the human spirit. Despite these attempts at suppression, however, we know that these teachings did not die. They merely went underground. In the Renaissance, a period of intellectual and spiritual rebirth, scholars rediscovered the Hermetic writings, and the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus once again began to circulate, albeit secretly. Figures like Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, Marsilio Ficino, and others brought these esoteric principles into the intellectual mainstream, ensuring that the knowledge would survive for future generations. Now that we have uncovered the depths of Hermes Trismegistus's teachings and explored the forces that sought to suppress them, it's time to look at how these ancient principles can be applied in our modern lives. While the mystical and philosophical aspects of Hermeticism may seem distant and arcane, the truth is that the wisdom of Hermes offers profound practical applications that can transform how we approach our lives. our spirituality, and our understanding of the world around us. 1. The power of as above, so below in daily life. Perhaps the most iconic of all Hermetic teachings is the axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. This statement encapsulates the idea that everything in the universe is interconnected, and that the microcosm of our inner world is a direct reflection of the macrocosm of the universe. In practical terms, this means that the state of our thoughts, emotions, and consciousness directly affects the reality we experience. To apply this teaching, begin by examining your inner world. What thoughts dominate your mind? What emotions do you carry with you on a daily basis? Are they uplifting or do they hold you back? Recognizing that these internal states influence the external world can help you begin to shift your focus. Start with small steps: practice mindfulness, meditate, and consciously replace negative or limiting thoughts with ones that align with your highest vision for yourself. In moments of uncertainty, consider the connection between your thoughts and the events around you. Ask yourself, how am I contributing to this situation with my mindset? By aligning your internal world with positivity, peace, and wisdom, you will find that your outer reality begins to shift in powerful and often unexpected ways. 2. Alchemy, inner transformation. The concept of alchemy, often associated with the transformation of base metals into gold, has deeper significance in Hermeticism. At its core, alchemy is about personal transformation, the transmutation of the base elements of the self into something higher, purer, and more divine. It's about turning your own inner lead into spiritual gold. Start by reflecting on your personal challenges and flaws not as obstacles, but as the raw materials for your transformation. The ancient alchemists worked with fire to transform substances. Similarly, you can use the metaphorical fire of challenges, discomfort, and inner conflict to catalyze your growth. Embrace moments of hardship as opportunities for transformation rather than something to fear or avoid. Begin each day with an intention to evolve. Ask yourself, what part of me can be transformed today? This could mean letting go of limiting beliefs, facing fears, or engaging in self-reflection to uncover your higher potential. Alchemy teaches us that transformation is not an external pursuit, it is a journey of the soul. 3. The art of self-knowledge and gnosis. One of the most profound aspects of Hermes Trismegistus's teachings is the pursuit of self-knowledge and gnosis, direct, experiential knowledge of the divine. In Hermeticism, it is not enough to simply study or learn about the divine, one must experience it directly. This knowledge transcends intellectual understanding and reaches the soul. To embark on the path of gnosis, practice deep self-inquiry and contemplation. Begin by asking fundamental questions about your purpose, your identity, and your connection to the universe. Who am I, really? What is my true nature? Set aside time each day to meditate in silence, to listen deeply to the whispers of your own soul, and to connect with the divine in your own unique way. This pursuit of gnosis is not about acquiring more knowledge or wisdom, but about embodying it. It is a lifelong journey of deepening your relationship with the divine essence that resides within you. By aligning your actions with this inner wisdom, you become a living expression of the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. 4. Astrology, understanding the divine order. Hermeticism's teachings on astrology are not about predicting the future, but about understanding the celestial patterns that influence our lives. The stars, in the Hermetic tradition, are not distant objects in the sky but symbols of divine energies that guide us. Understanding astrology through a Hermetic lens involves recognizing the cosmic forces at play and aligning oneself with them to create harmony and balance in life. Take time to study your astrological chart and explore how the positions of the planets at the time of your birth may offer insight into your life's purpose, strengths, and challenges. Hermetic astrology is not about fatalism or superstition, it is about understanding the rhythms of the cosmos and working with them, rather than against them. By becoming more attuned to the cosmic energies that influence us, we can navigate life with greater ease, wisdom, and clarity. Pay attention to the cycles of the moon, the seasons, and the alignments of the stars, and use this knowledge to make decisions in harmony with the larger cosmic order. 5. The practice of magic as spiritual discipline. Finally, the Hermetic tradition teaches that magic, at its core, is a discipline, a way to tap into the universal forces that govern all things. But magic is not about spells and rituals for personal gain. It is about aligning oneself with the divine will and understanding the laws of the universe to achieve spiritual and inner growth. To practice Hermetic magic, start with small rituals that help you focus your intention and align yourself with higher forces. This could involve lighting a candle to represent spiritual illumination, meditating on a symbol that represents divine knowledge, or visualizing your own transformation. Hermetic magic is not about seeking power over others, but about empowering oneself to become a clearer vessel for divine wisdom and understanding. As we reach the end of our journey through the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, we are left with one undeniable truth. This ancient wisdom is not something locked in the past, but a living, breathing guide that can still illuminate our path today. The secrets Hermes held within his writing, secrets that were buried, silenced, and obscured, are still available to us, if we have the courage to seek them. By embracing these teachings, we can begin to understand our true nature, connect with the divine, and transform our lives in ways that seem impossible. We can transcend the limits of the material world and unlock the spiritual potential that resides within us all. But the question remains: will we choose to uncover these truths, or will we continue to let them be silenced? The teachings of Hermes Trismegistus are waiting, hidden in plain sight. The question is, are you ready to listen?